Are you a developer who makes chatbots, APIs, game servers, websites, managed databases, or something similar like Ubuntu or Debian? Well, what is Linux and what are you using it for, how to use it, and how to get started in remote workspaces / remote development. With this video, I'm covering all of those features, and let's get right into it. Linux is an open source operating system, aka OS, which is able to be used via command line interfaces. What you see right here is a remote machine, and I can see files, create files, delete files, and run programs remotely on a separate machine on SharkNode. Linux manages your devices, hard drive, memory, CPU, and GPU. Because Linux itself is just a kernel, but with the magic of distributions like Ubuntu, Debian, Linux Mint, etc., you can get the whole work experience of Linux. Most distributions are based on Debian, like Ubuntu is based on Debian. Debian, if you Google it on Firefox, debian.org is Universal Operation System, and the website currently is not looking great. That's why I'm directly going to ubuntu.com, which is a desktop like Windows. You can download Ubuntu 20.04 is the current release and use it as a desktop environment. But you can also use it as a server environment like Ubuntu Server, which is just a CLI. And you can even do the server and upgrade it to a desktop environment so you can remotely access it with remote desktop protocol or SSH streaming or VNCs and use a machine with graphical interface remotely. But this I will teach you in a separate video. To get started, we need to figure out what is a remote machine. There are three types of remote machines. The first one is a dedicated machine. Dedicated machines are available for cheap at hetzner.de. You can choose the language and your country. There you can go on dedicated and server finder or server auction and select a dedicated machine. For example, I'm the Ryzen 5 with these cores and threads, this amount of memory and this storage. It will cost me around about 45 euros per month before tax. So let's say almost 60 euros. This is a ton of money. You can get cheaper options, like cheaper machines on different locations, but I would say that this price is hella cheap for a dedicated machine of this power. If you really rely on getting 100% of the CPU power, 100% of memory, you need a dedicated machine, because a dedicated machine is simply said a remotely placed computer which is running 24/7 and you can use 100% of it and just you. A part of a dedicated machine is a virtual machine, a VM or VPS or cloud machine. The hosting provider who is offering cloud machines like Hetzner create many little virtual machines, like just one virtual core and 2 memory, 20 gigabytes of disk space, and you can pay less for less resources. There are now 2 types of that, and that's how they are virtualized. The first one is KVM, kernelized virtual machine. Second one is VPS or containers like LXC containers, which is a container. A KVM that is usually also stated as a dedicated virtual machine, or a VDS like Contabo advertises it. Contabo is a huge company which offers VPSs like cloud VPS. Now, what's the thing with KVM? Well, KVM means you get 100% of the resources and can use 100% of the resources you pay for. Here on the VPS, I would pay for 6 cores and 60 gigabytes of memory, and I would expect that I get to use that. But if you would get a LXC machine or container, which is often advertised as a virtual machine or VPS with nothing else, it might be that other users are sharing your memory and CPU, which could lead to less performance. If you're a developer and just developing remotely, this doesn't really matter for you. But if you rely on power, you should buy a KVM machine. This Contabo option is really cheap and a good way to go. However, Contabo is often not that good with the traffic and the CPU power. So that's kinda risky way. I will now show you a couple hosting companies I found are good. Clientserverhost.de also available in English, offers KVM VPSs with SSD, Flex or NVMe. I'm gonna go on SSD. I can choose the amount of cores and the amount of IP addresses, the storage and the memory. This is a KVM machine and is pretty decent in my opinion. Also, Berohost.de is a German-only page but has good configured packages with high quality, which are also rather cheap. Good. Now you can buy a VPS and get it ready. Once it is ready, you should receive an email like your machine is now ready and able to be used, or thanks for ordering your machine, it will take around 10 minutes and will be ready. I got something here and the machine is of course ready already. You will find an IP address either on the panel or in the machine, same with the password, either on the panel or on the machine. You also need a username like root, and it could also be server or Debian, but if no username is prompted, it's usually root or something similar like that. You might also find an IPv6 address, and now I'm gonna head into what are IPs. Well, every website and computer has their own IP addresses. They are like identifiers for the machines so that other machines know what machine is this website, what machine is google.com, etc, etc. To access something, you need the IP address because you need to know I need to go to this machine. There are now two well-known IP address protocols, IPv4, which is like this, and IPv6, which is hexadecimal. The problem with IPv4 is there's obviously just a limited amount of IPs. I recommend you watch this video. He is explaining IPs in detail very well. Shortly summarized, IPv6 has this many more IP addresses than IPv4 could offer. Currently, the situation is that IPv4 is a limited resource and not every machine is able to get one IP address, which is why IPv6 got introduced. Now, how to connect to your first server. You got your IP address, you're gonna copy the IP address, remember the username, and you're gonna open a terminal window. It could also be named PowerShell, or command prompt aka CMD. Now to connect to the machine, simply type SSH space username, in my case that's root, copy the IPv4 address, type an @ symbol and right click to paste the IP address. Then press enter to connect to it. It will now ask to remember the host. You want to remember the host name and continue to connecting to it and press yes, because both you and the host will talk to each other saying, are you available to be connected? The host will say yes, but I need a password. And to say that, he needs your IP address. So now the host has my IP address and I have the host IP address. Now I'm gonna enter the password. If you type something, you see nothing will be happening. This is a security measure so that you are not exposing your password to others. Now copy the password again and right click. It will be pasted, press enter, and you should be able to connect if everything went correctly during the installation process. The first thing which will happen is to show these informations, and this is just base information. If you have Ubuntu installed on Debian, it might be different. If you type htop, you can check all of these again. Now the very first thing you need to do when you log into a VPS is to make sure you got the resources you paid for. To check the storage, you type df space -h. There you find somewhere the mounted on just a /, and this will be your drive size in around about 50 gigabytes. That's what I ordered. If you type free-h for free human, you see the memory. I have a total of 11 gigabit, which is around about 12 gigabit, and that's what I ordered. My swap 4 gigabit is the amount of digital memory which is used when my memory gets to 100%, and this will be then written on my storage device. To check the CPU, you type ls CPU. You can then see what CPU type you have, the CPU speed, as well as the cores or threads you get assigned to. If you type host name CTL, you see what virtualization you got. I got KVM, your operating system, your kernel, etc, etc in a sum up. Now I know that I have a KVM machine. This is what I ordered. I know my CPU core count, I know my memory count, and my storage. htop is just a little graphical interface, you should have it installed on default, but if you have an older system, it might not be installed. Now, if you type ls, you see the files. I want to upload a file from my downloads. If you see, in downloads, I have this example folder with this example text document, hello world. I want to upload the entire folder to the machine, so let's drag and drop it in here. It doesn't really work. It just pastes the path of it. Now to upload it, we're gonna create a new window on our terminal, and now we're gonna go into that path. I'm gonna go to cd downloads, and if I type dir, because now I'm on Windows, I see not the file. That's because my user downloads and this downloads is located on a separate drive. So if I go to cd, that's my drive name, and then downloads, and then type ls or dir, I can now see the example folder. Now I'm gonna upload the folder to my machine. This works if you don't have any software installed via the SCP protocol. SCP. Now you just type the path to the file or folder. If you upload the folder, you need a -r in front of it. Then you type the username at your IP address again. And then you type a double column and then the location where it should land. You can either use the tilde, slash, and then example folder, or you can use the entire path, which is in my case root. So you could also do instead of the tilde, slash root. I'm going to use the tilde because that's simpler. Now you press enter. It's asking for your password again. I'm going to paste the password again in there, and it should be transferred soon. Something went wrong with the password. I didn't copy the password, I copied the IP address. Sorry for that. And now it's uploaded. Now I go back to the machine where I'm connected. I type ls, and now I see the example folder. I type ls example folder. How to do it that fast? Simply do ls ex or ex, and then press tab, which will auto-complete. Now we have our test file. To view what's in it, we can just type ls example folder test.txt, and we see hello world. Perfectly fine. But transferring those files is slow. You would take a long time to transfer them via your command line interface each time. You can use SFTP programs for that. Example ones are FileZilla or WinSCP. Personally, I like WinSCP as it's like your Windows terminal with two views, your desktop and your environment. I have WinSCP installed, and I'm gonna show you how it works. You open it. You then create the host name, which is my IP address. Port number is 22 on default. Username is root. And the password is sharknode. You can even save that machine with IP address or your alias, which is, for example, sharknode. Save the password if you want and press OK. Now double click on that and you accept the key, and you should be connected. Now here you can select the folder or click on the double dot to go one back, for example into our home directory. That's the wrong one. And now here we can go into, I don't know, ShareX, screenshots, and upload our video screenshot. Press OK, and it now uploaded the video to here. You can upload multiple files if you want, and it will do that for you. Now, do you want to replace, aka overwrite a pre-existing file? Never ask me again, or yes to all. Now if we go back to our connection via the terminal, and we go cd/home and type ls, we see all of the files in here. But you might not want to use a terminal and a file uploading system. For that, you can use an all-in-one program. For example, tabby.sh. This is my most favorite terminal, which has SFTP installed too, which has also SFTP installed, like WinSTP. So you just click download and then scroll down for your favorite download option. For my case, it's setup 6446exe. Now we're gonna install Tabby. For everyone, choose your favorite storage. Now that Tabby is installed, we can click Finish and run Tabby. As you can see, Tabby is an open source program coded by Eugene and an open source community. Tabby loads up a little bit slower. It has already my pre-setup installed. As you can see, I have the example Ubuntu node profile and automatically connects with pre-saved data. So, how do you do that? My Tabby looks different than yours. Why does it look different? Well, I'm gonna show you how to adjust it and what I made. If you go to Settings, Application, these are the default settings. In appearance, you can set the font and the font size. I set the font size 18. You can declare your cursor. This is the default Linux cursor. This is the default text cursor. I like that one more. In Profiles and Connections, you can create a new profile. Let me delete that. Delete. You can create a new profile. You can then click here on SSH connection. You can name it my Ubuntu machine. You can group it, shark node. You can give it an icon and a color, and hex color. I would recommend to disable dynamic title. Open your email again, grab the IP address, paste it in here, the username and the password. Forget the old password and paste the new password. Click on OK. And now if you go on terminal, you can do terminal settings. These are my settings. Not much has changed. Color scheme, I usually use programmer, but there are so many others to choose. For example, let's use Night Owl. So now we're using Night Owl. Config sync. Hotkeys. I would recommend to disable the toggle window hotkey, which was Control Space, because if you're a VS Code developer, it would mean that your hotkey of VS Code would also toggle the terminal window of Tabby, which isn't optimal as much. In plugins, you can select pre-installed one or available ones. I installed Alt-R, which then forces to restart your whole application, which you can then go to Window and select in here, which stalls the settings menu in the overall Tabby window. Now that we're here in Tabby, in Window, these are my settings. Vault, SSH and shell, you shouldn't really change much unless you need the config file cross-sync over your Vault or over config sync. Now you can close those informations, and if you click on this icon, you can either create an CMD, aka command line interface, and use like terminal, the normal terminal like this one, or you can open your node. It can automatically connect via password, and as you can see, that's kind of slow and not secure because anyone could paste password. Well, that's why we are now gonna create a more secure way of connecting to a remote machine, which is SSH-KEYS. To create an SSH key, go to your Windows terminal again and type SSH-KEYGEN. It now generates your public-private RSA key pair. Copy the path or paste your own path. C users chris.ssh id_rsa2. Passphrase is required if you want to enter a passphrase every time you connect. So it's double secured, a password and the SSH key. I will not use a passphrase because that's too much work for me. I do not want to remember passwords and just use an SSH key, which doesn't require passwords at all. Enter, I just pressed enter and it does nothing. Now we're gonna upload the SSH key to our remote machine using STP, or we can even use the tabby by clicking here on SFTP, going to your user, aka root. There is a folder called SSH. There is something called authorized keys. We will adjust that file later, but we go back to root. We now go to our folder C, then to users, your username and SSH. Now I have here my ID RSA pub. I'm gonna upload it to, not with WinFTP, I don't need this anymore. I'm gonna upload it to here, simply by drag and drop, and it's uploading. Now it's uploaded. Now if I go and press ls, I see ID RSA pub. Now I'm gonna show you what's the default state is. You're gonna make a new directory, call it SH and a dot in front. Now you're gonna create a new file in that directory called authorized_keys. Now we're gonna pass the content of our ID RSA2 into that just created file authorized keys. Oops, I created a directory authorized keys. We of course want to create a file, so we're gonna remove that one again with -r and now touch SSH authorized_keys, which is the command to create a file. If you want to figure out how to use Linux, I will be doing a Linux starter tutorial series soon. Stay tuned. Now we're gonna pass the content of our file into SSH authorized keys and press enter, like that. Now our ID, aka SSH key, is stored in that file. The next thing is we're gonna close the terminal again, go back to settings, go to profiles, Ubuntu machine, and add a private key, which again is on C, users, your username, scroll down, and there's your somewhere SSH and ID RSA2 pub. Click save, and now if you connect to your Ubuntu machine, it now uses and asks for the passphrase. You don't have any passphrase, but it will spam that private key passphrase, and you can't go away with it. That's because of some weird bug with Tabby. If you go SSH, if you would reconnect to the SSH machine via -i .ssh ID RSA2 pub. Wait. Now, as you can see, it asks for the private key passphrase. I declared it to be enter, so it doesn't remember that. We're gonna escape away, and this is a misconfiguration. We're gonna just select key and click save. If we now connect to the machine, because that's a misconfiguration, instead of auto, we click on password, and then to solve this version, we're gonna open that file. So we go back to here and right click, open. For me it opens now a LibreOffice editor, but you can also open it with your notepad, which is way faster. Now you are looking for version. Somewhere it should print version. Or is it in this file? Wait. Now to connect via a private key, we click here on key and add a private key. The ID RSA2 pub is our public key, and ID RSA2 is our private key. We're gonna select that file and click save. Now if we click on that profile connection and then my Ubuntu machine, it's now loading the private key and we're automatically connected via the private key. Amazing, right? We can now close all of our terminals and we are now securely connected to our remote machine using an SSH key. Okay, I have this covered. Now I'm gonna show you how to style and set up your Linux machine. The first thing what I want to do is change the design of our terminal. As you can see, this is very basic and the design is configured in your .bashrc. This file can be also managed by separate plugins or user-made features or scripts. An example one would be ohmybash. This is a GitHub script on ohmybash/ohmybash. Link in the video description. If you click here, the first command via bash and curl, which means we're gonna install a package called curl. apt-get install curl. Now right click to paste the command and it will Now because it says it uses curl, it might be that we don't have curl installed. So we're going to install it at first and I will explain package managing after we start our terminal. apt-get install curl. Now we're going to right click for the command and it will install ohmybash. Now we're going to go on edit the ohmybash style by typing nano.bashrc, making sure the tilde is shown. If not, type cd tilde and then nano.bashrc. Here you can change the OSH font. I would, for example, use, if you scroll down, Agnoster, or you can just go on the wiki page and themes. I see a ton of themes and you can select any theme you want, but yeah. So I'm gonna go back to here and now gonna use Agnoster. I'm gonna type Agnoster. Now to save the file, we're gonna press Ctrl S and Ctrl X. Now if we reconnect to the machine, it's now styled that way. If you want to clear the window every time after connecting, go back into bashrc and scroll all the way down, then type clear. Save and exit again, and if we reconnect, everything is cleared. Neat! Now, we're gonna cover package managing. What is package managing? Well, packages are basically apps or applications. A Linux package manager is usually apt, but there are also other ones. For example, Snap, Yum, Pacman. I think it's written like that. Pacman and apt are official package managers. Pacman is for different distribution than apt. Apt is for Debian, etc. Snap and Yarn are distributions which can access user-made repositories and apps. apt is always using kinda official aka verified applications from a host like Debian.org or Ubuntu.com, which are uploaded and located there. So with apt-get you can install official stuff like Node.js, Python 3, FFmpeg, or curl. You can even update your entire system by typing apt-get update. It will now check all of the packages and applications you installed via apt-get and then update them if available. To upgrade the packages, type apt-get upgrade. It's gonna ask you if you want to continue, press Y to continue. This is something you should do for every Linux system, updating and upgrading the system. Now that it's done, we can get started with installing our wished packages. There might be pre-installed stuff, like Node.js might be pre-installed, or Python might be pre-installed, but if not, you need to install it manually. To do that, go on Firefox and Google how to install Node.js. Well, I made scripts for that on my GitHub repository, Debian cheat sheet setup, link in the description. There you find utility commands for Linux like speed tests, clearing cache, disabling sleeping processes, or the welcome message. Essential commands and an insta setup Linux server which installs many third-party packages like Node.js, Yarn, and Python. To install Node.js, you can either use this feature or install Node.js version 18. First, update the system and upgrade it. We already did that. Then we're gonna apt-get install, build essentials, and curl. It's gonna install that. Next, we're gonna install the source from node source, setup 18.x, and execute it via bash. We're gonna wait until it's ready. Right-click to paste the command. And then lastly, we're going to type apt-get install y Node.js. Now it's installing Node.js as well as the Node Package Manager npm. We could now do the same and scroll through the page and install things like Java 18. Simply copy paste the entire block by clicking this copy paste thing, or install the OpenJDK 18 JRA headless, which might not be available if you have an older system, but let's check. It's not available for me, so I'm gonna install it from source by doing that. Now I have Java installed, I also have Node.js installed and npm installed. We can even use npm-e-g to install check updates or yarn or pm2. Now that it's done, it also recommends me to update my npm by running this command. Now that that's done, we're gonna go back into our cheat sheet and we could do some other installations, for example Python 3.10. We could do apt-get install Python 3 and it installs the version from Ubuntu, which is already installed, or we install it via command line, aka from source. Same applies for Github, which I recommend. Not GitHub, but Git, which needs a ton of encoding libraries, and then essentials. To install the essentials, we're gonna just copy this block, go back to our terminal, and paste it once Git is installed. Now that that's installed, we can right click to install our essentials, which will take a bunch of time. But after you did that, we will have installed essentials, Node.js, Python and Java, which are key requirements for any developer or whatsoever. In some other videos I will explain how to use a proxy server like Apache or Nodejs. But lastly, we will now make our VPS secure. The root user is the system administrator. With root you can destroy a machine. It's not clever to connect via the root user unless you know what you're doing. First up, we're gonna change our password of the machine. Then we're gonna now again delete the SSH authorized key because we need it for a custom user to be fair. I'm gonna delete my example folder and my OpenJDK. And I'm gonna move my ID pub into the /home directory. Back in the /home directory, I'm gonna delete everything that back into this home directory. I'm gonna delete everything that's ending with mp4, so I just have my pub file. Now we're gonna create a sub user. I'm gonna name it Chrissy. We're gonna type user add Chrissy. We're gonna also type or declare a default directory like /home/Chrissy. Now we're gonna press enter and it should create the username Chrissy. If we type ls, no folder is created. That's because we need to create the folder sometimes manually. If we now zoom into Chrissy, aka switch into the user and type passvd, it says changing current password. That's not good. So we press Ctrl D to cancel and Ctrl D to go back to the root user, and we need to first declare the password for our user by doing passvd Chrissy. Now we're gonna set a password for Chrissy, and now we're gonna set that Chrissy is only able to use the Chrissy folder and has permissions to do that by typing cown Chris or add the username and the username again, then the folder of the username and then -r. Now we're gonna add the user Chrissy to our sudo group, which give us root privileges if we need to via the root password by typing usermod-hk sudo and our username aka Chrissy. Now if we log in with the Chrissy account by typing sudo Chrissy, we're now in Chrissy, and if we go cd tilde and type pvd, we're in /home Chrissy, and we create a file called hello, it works. If we go outside and create a file called hello, it says permissions denied, because the only things I can change is inside of my home directory Chrissy. That's neat. Now we're gonna type bash, and now we're in the bash version. We want to declare the shell of our user. To change the shell, we type SSH. We're gonna enter our password. And now we're gonna type /bin/bash, because bash is better. Now we press Ctrl D, and now we're gonna copy our IDRC pub into Chrissy. Now we go into Chrissy, and now we're gonna create a new directory, call it .ssh. And now we're gonna again cat our IDRC into SSH authorized keys. Now if we close the profile and edit the machine by left clicking on it, change the username to Chrissy and save, and we connect to it, we now connect as user Chrissy. The problem we are having right now is that we don't have bash installed. So we now go back to the GitHub repository, copy the installation command, go back to here and execute it. Now we're gonna again go in bash rc and edit the code, and go all the way down and add clear again. Now if we reconnect, we even have our custom styled terminal in our user. Every single user is able to connect with the same port. If we want to change the port we're connecting to, you can simply do sudo nano /etc/ssh/shd config. Type our password, and now go down. The port we can change it is like 4444. Not pretty unique, but you get the point. We even gonna set that you are not allowed to log in via root. So only you can do, so that you're only able to log in via the Chrissy user. Then we're gonna also edit password authentication. We're gonna disable that so that they can only log in with an SSH key. So we're gonna set password authentication to no. With Ctrl S and X, we're gonna save and exit. And now if we're gonna close the machine and try to reconnect again, it works. This is because our SSH didn't restart. So we're now gonna type sudo systemctl restart SSH, password again, and SSHD. Now if we try to reconnect, it's not working because we need to reconnect or connect with port 4444. So let's change that in here. And if we try to connect via that port, we can remember the new key, and we're now connected with the new port. That's one way of protecting your machine. Use an SSH key, change the port. Second way is use an SSH key with a passphrase, so you have double login protection. Next way is you could set up a tar pit. A tutorial is in my cheat sheet here. And the last thing is a firewall. To set up a firewall, we're gonna do sudo apt-get install ufv password. Then sudo ufv disable incoming. I think that's sudo ufv default deny incoming and allow outgoing. Then we're gonna allow SSH. Then we're gonna allow port 4444. And then we're gonna do enable. Now if we do sudo ufv status, we see the status, which allows 222 and 444. 444 is for SSH, and we need 444 as TCP2. Sudo ufv allow 444/TCP. Now if we do the status command again, it's fine. Because 222 is not our SSH port, we can delete it if we want. So we're gonna do ufv status numbered with sudo. And now we can do sudo ufv delete 1. Yes. Delete 3, which will be the new one. Yes. And now if we do sudo ufv status we now only have our firewall with 444. Note, if we change the port now and don't change the firewall, we wouldn't be able to connect because the firewall prevents us from connecting. So if we try that again, if we try to connect again, we should be able to connect. You can make it even more advanced by allowing only specific IP addresses or a specific IP address range for a specific ports. So only your IP address is able to connect to that port, and that's it. You can even set up a VPN server and then select the IP address from the VPN server. So you can only connect via that VPN server. And how do you host a VPN server? On a Linux machine. Now, this is it for the base tutorial of Linux. I'm gonna tell you what else I'm gonna show in the very near future. I'm gonna make a video how to use a graphical interface for remote development. How to do remote development with Visual Studio Code. Showing off Guacamole, showing off Coda.com, proxy servers with Nigix and Nigix proxy manager, and Apache 2. How to host a website, how to connect a domain, etc. etc. As well as starting a new series called Linux Basics. We're gonna teach Linux. One more thing, I hope you enjoy. Spend time with Linux. Linux is the greatest OS ever, and peace out.